Ahoy, and welcome. This is Admiral. Finally here with a spare moment to give my quick take on the announcement of an avalanche of awesome AoE2 content arriving in April. There's so much to cover, so I'm just going to give a scattershot commentary on some highlights, with deeper dives as we get more information. This is of course related to the upcoming Asian DLC we've talked about before, which looks more expansive than previously thought, as well as the upcoming balance patch and major cosmetic update coming in mid-April. Regarding the identity of the 5 new civilizations, changes to campaign civilizations provide further fuel to the bonfire of evidence that we're getting Jurchens, Tanguts, and probably Khitans. And if I were to bet on the last two, I'd bet on Tibet and Bai. While the evidence isn't fully conclusive, it just seems like the safest and most obvious prediction at this point. And given what we know about the theme of the DLC, anything else would seem out of place, including Three Kingdoms civilizations. Tyranno in particular has made the most compelling case I've seen for why those are the most likely civilizations, so I'll just leave it at that, as I imagine others have covered the topic more thoroughly in their videos already. I do want to cherry pick a few other tidbits that caught my eye and what they might portend for the game, before finishing with a discussion of some of the new graphics. To start right off, Antiquity mode is now no longer a requirement to gather from oysters, so this suggests a possible mainstreaming of that water gold source, or at least that some standard or new water maps might include oysters in the near future. A new Chinese mission has been added to Victors and Vanquished, which I know will be too little too late for some, but I do appreciate the extended good faith effort to address the poor reception of that project by continuing to update and add value to it. There is a boatload of new changes to Infantry, but perhaps the most important is the removal of supplies, which technology I was never a fan of, as the pay for discount of that tech was always a barrier to the early viability of swordsmen. Jaguar warriors now get a massive damage boost, which is certainly useful, but does seem a little tacky to me design-wise, as I don't think it's the best fit for the unit's identity. And as much as I admire the Makwawik, it doesn't make sense to be the most consistently hard-hitting melee weapon in the context of medieval warfare. Then again, neither does the Yarumi sword, but for whatever reason, the devs made that unit hit like a Jedi Master with his armor-melting lightsaber. Just AoE2 stuff, I guess.
Look how they massacred my boy.
But the experience ability of gaining attack from defeated enemies is interesting, and I respect the effort to make the Jaguar warrior more of a go-to unit for the Aztecs. Celts can finally unlock 20% faster infantry by Imperial Age, which has been a common request in some form or another. And the Chinese and Koreans, as expected, are getting a significant rework, including a large number of regional units. Interestingly, Samurai are now getting a small charge attack and speed boost when charging an enemy, and turtle ships now fire multiple projectiles, which are both ideas you may have seen in my videos already.
Coincidence? I think not!
One other point that interests me greatly is the addition of several new color moods, as we will be more than tripling the current 5 by getting a total of 13 new color moods for a total of 18. I'll be surprised if all of these are merely variations in color, hue, tint, saturation, and so forth, but suspect that some of them will also incorporate other atmospheric effects as we discussed in a previous video. In particular, the new moods called Brumus, Misty, and Rainforest are likely candidates to incorporate a bit of light, snow, fog, and rain to test the waters of more immersive and impactful weather effects. Under the modding section, we see several interesting new entries that extend the possibilities of unit abilities and civilization bonuses, so I'll go over a few of them. It's likely that some of these are exclusive to campaign heroes or editor objects, as some are further on the radical and gimmicky side, like temporary activatable auras, but others can undoubtedly give us clues as to new civilization bonuses or unit abilities. The first is a friendly fire multiplier, which strongly suggests that one of the new or reworked civilizations will have a bonus or technology that allows allied units to take less friendly fire damage than they otherwise would. There's also a new damage reflection ability that redirects some of the melee damage a target unit receives back onto the attacker, which seems a little odd for AoE2, but I'm interested in seeing what it's used for. My crazy theory is this might be a Shaolin monk ability, but I do think even that would be a bit silly. There's also a new charge ability that allows a unit to block one melee attack, meaning that after all these years of training with swords and shields, it's finally possible for at least one unit to execute a fully successful parry with nary a scratch. My guess is that this new attribute for projectile vanish mode will be used for time-delayed explosions. In other words, instead of dealing blast damage immediately on impact like a mangonel shot, the projectile or bomb will land in an area and explode a few seconds later. Or it could be used to deploy longer-lasting deterrents such as caltrops with attack ground to make the ground attack back. This next one I'm guessing has to do with military units being able to build field defenses, although it could also be used to place landmines, since that's apparently a new object class. There's also an interesting section about transformation, following the same premise that we discussed in my charge ability video, where the Ratha's toggle button was used to activate a charge by upgrading a unit with superior speed or other stats for a short period of time. Another likely application is for a unit to fire a single special projectile before switching into normal ranged attack or into melee attack mode. This new Stingers task allows for a variety of new or expanded features, including the ability to slow the movement speed or attack rate of enemy units while you're attacking them, and for a designated time afterwards, or to increase your own unit's speed, attack rate, or regeneration rate while attacking, and for a designated time afterwards. If the regeneration element works with negative numbers, this would enable delayed or persistent damage to enemies, as would be appropriate for a poison or burn damage mechanic that deals a certain amount of timed damage after a hit, or a certain proportion of an enemy's hit points. Speaking of hit points, there's also an HP transformation task that is a staple of boss battles in RPGs, but does feel a little bit radical for AoE2, whereby a unit above or below a certain hit point level will turn into a different unit. I'm not sure where that might be used except for some kind of berserk mode, perhaps for elephants wounded below a certain level, or something in the campaigns. The last thing I want to note before discussing new graphics is the extension of elevation from 7 to 16. Technically, it's long been possible to have elevations higher than 7 in a map, and quite a few of my background maps have elevations of 10 or 11. But I wouldn't expect anyone to have identified that without a comparison point, and that trick will soon become obsolete as everyone will freely be able to place elevations more than twice the height of what the standard scenario editor currently allows. And might I say, this extra elevation will surely come in handy if we're correct about this DLC including a Tibetan civilization.
Welcome to the Himalayas!
Finally, and probably the biggest single piece of news apart from the DLC itself, is the addition of new unique visuals for castles and unique units, and regional visuals for monks and monasteries. I and many others have long been advocates for more unique visuals, and regional monks in particular has been such a long-standing community request that for years it seemed like it would just never happen. So it's really nice to see that the developers have been paying attention to those forum threads and Reddit requests that at the time may have felt like speaking into the void.
So people talking on Reddit and complaining about stuff, it's not wasted. It's not for the birds, as people like to say.
It is generally not wasted. Like we read Reddit, we read the official forums. Like,
all right, so keep doing it, guys.
And we've seen some great proposals for regional military and villager skins put forth by Gaudio and others that I hope will be future projects. Elite skins for unique units isn't something I've advocated for specifically, but it is a fantastic idea, and I do remember seeing videos about it as well as forum and Reddit threads. My most controversial opinion about this is that some of the elite versions actually look a little too elite, in a way that may ironically diminish the immersion, at least for me, because a few of them look more like commander or hero units, and it might look strange to have more than a couple of them, much less a whole army. Case in point, the Elite Teutonic Knight graphic in all its winged glory looks absolutely fantastic, and I'm happy to have it as a new graphic. But as the standard look for all your Teutonic Knights once you research Elite, it may be too much of a good thing. Or maybe it just reminds me too much of one rendition of the Mouth of Sauron, or of an old LEGO character called the Batlord. There is historical imagery of Teutonic Knights wearing winged helmet crests, of course, although as far as I can tell that was mainly associated with very high-ranking knights, including the Hochmeister, and to the extent that they were used in combat, were by far more practical for mounted knights. The non-elite Teutonic Knight is already one of the coolest looking non-hero units, so I personally think that a lighter touch would have sufficed, perhaps giving it the iconic shield of the Teutonic Knights, or a longer sword, with helmet embellishments being more subtle and distinct from the Grand Master's helmet. The kind of changes that would adequately convey their increased strength and armor, while being more representative of a more typical knight. Then again, AoE2 devs have a reputation to uphold for putting wings on things, And I expect that most players won't mind their elite Teutonic Knights having their coolness stats maxed out, especially now that their plus 10 hit points and conversion resistance make them more intimidating than ever. So I freely admit I may be the man in the middle here. In a similar vein of thinking, I like the new elite throwing axeman as a chieftain or hero unit, but I would have preferred if they had instead toned down the non-elite version, giving it an actual one-headed Francisca axe, which would then upgrade into the current visual after researching elite, although perhaps that would be too much of a mismatch. Admittedly, this is pretty nitpicky, and I don't want to overstate my critiques given how cool it is that they've made these, and most of them that I've seen so far do seem like a great fit. But I'm curious what you all think about these new graphics, including any critiques you might have. My favorites of the bunch are the elite versions of the Samurai, Janissary, and Keshik. For the new non-elite graphics, I'm a big fan of the Shotel Warrior, and especially the Plumed Archer. The Plumed Archer is not as unhistorical as some have suggested, and the new toned-down version is more in line with historical descriptions of Maya archers encountered in Yucatan and Champoton. And we only have a sampling of the unique units here, so it'll be exciting to see what they've done with the others. I just hope that, among other things, they finally give the Jaguar Warrior his suit, but hopefully without cannibalizing any hero units. Of course, we have other exciting graphics, including new tree types, chickens, a Shaolin temple, this cool little arched bridge, immortal pandas, and many others. To cap it all off, I want to take a moment to bask in how remarkable this moment is in Age 2 history. This is the first time since the Conqueror's expansion in 2000 that we've had 5 new civilizations added at once, on top of many other additions and improvements. So while I think it's fair to say that the Conqueror's era was the game's original golden age, this DLC feels like a herald of its renaissance. While the Antiquity-themed Chronicles DLC was impressive and groundbreaking, it wasn't typical AoE2 content, and had some of us wondering whether we'd see such a high-effort return to form when it was time for more medieval editions. Much remains to be seen, but the big picture is looking as good as it ever has for fans of the game. And all we have to do is wait. Anyway, that's all for today, and thanks for watching. This has been me sharing a scattered smorgasbord of sentiments and suspicions surrounding the subsequent patch and Sinosphere DLC. Till next time.